They spend that much time. I had a boss that I think it was his bragging rights that he spent 40 hours a week plus watching movies. He spent as much time watching movies as he did at work. That's sad. To the point where his kids got a game about movies, and when they asked the question, they had this little thing that they played, they put it in the TV, and they would play like a little clip of a video on it. I think he said it's called Seen It. He said I could answer the question before they ever showed the video. What color hat were they wearing? What were they wearing? What their clothes were? He said I spent that much time watching, I could beat them before they ever showed it on TV, and my kids didn't like it. You know what I like doing? I like going to a nursing home. I like starting some of these songs and listen as they finish them without a book. You say, have you ever done it? Ask my family. And you know what I would do? I'd take my hymn book and I would say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have requests and we're going to sing it by memory today. And I'd put my book down as well. And I'd be put to shame by some of those people. Who would sing the first verse and the second verse and the third verse, and here I am thinking, I knew the first verse, I knew the last verse. Boy, if we could only get our thoughts and minds wrapped around things like that, the Word of God, songs that are spiritually uplifting to us, if we could only get our thoughts and our memories like that, what a life. We have the saying that people use that you don't want to be so heavenly minded, you're of no earthly good. I want to say you got to be not over earthly minded, that you're of no heavenly good, that you can't bring people to Christ and lift them to the Savior. We get our minds so wrapped around the things of the world. You have your Bible this morning? Haggai. Haggai chapter 2, one of the last books of the Old Testament. Haggai. And if you pronounce it differently than me, you're probably right. I am not the best at giving the literal translation of everybody's name at every given moment. Some people want to say Iran, I still say Iran. That's the way I was brought up. And my wife still says aunt, I still say aunt. Do what? And she says I'm still wrong. But I told you, I did play a trick on her sister and set them all up at the same time. I asked her sister to spell the word, or pronounce the word P-A-N-T. What does that spell? Pant. I said, pronounce this word, P-A-U-N-T. And she said, haunt. I said, now take the P off of there. Aunt. And her and her sisters looked at each other like, oh! He got her to say aunt. I'm ornery like that. I love playing with the English language. It's a neat thing. And when they realized it, oh, we have never had a discussion since. There's been nobody correcting anybody. It's just all low key. And we have a lot of fun. Haggai chapter 2. I'm going to read a few verses. The temple of God was built, the temple for God. I want to be careful in our word usage. The temple for God was built by Solomon. Okay? Solomon built a temple for God. It became the temple of God, which he declared, I will meet with you there, so therefore it is mine. Okay? Until God decided he was going to meet with him there, it was just a building. But it was a beautiful, immaculate facility. One of the most beautiful buildings of its day, just amazing. All the workmanship that went into it, and if you do the research and the history and the study of it, wow. That's all you can say is wow. They didn't even do it on site. They did the workmanship off site, then they brought it on site and put it in place, and it fit together perfectly. I have some friends that have done construction. they did kit houses. These kit houses would come with just a pile of lumber, all that you would need. You know, sometimes it didn't come with enough. Sometimes it came with extra. The kit never came the same every time. And these guys got frustrated. This project for building the temple was done off-site. And when they brought it on-site, it was all perfect and fit together. And it was just a beautiful facility. Thinking about that and realizing that the building itself was destroyed, okay? It was destroyed. Here's where we are in Haggai chapter 2. In the 7th month, verse 1, in the 7th month, in the 21st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by the prophet Haggai, saying, Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, Who is left among you that saw this house in her first glory? And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison of it as nothing? Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Josedek, the high priest. And be strong, all ye people of the land, saith the Lord, and work. For I am with you, saith the Lord of hosts. According to the word that I covenanted with you when ye came out of Egypt, so my spirit remaineth among you. Fear ye not. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, Yet once, it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth, and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. Now that is truly Jesus Christ. That is a prophecy. Jesus Christ is coming. That is a prophecy. The desire of all nations. That is what every nation desires. They just don't know how to go about getting their desire. Man is born with an internal desire for peace and righteousness. Man is born with that desire. Right. The problem is, man is seeking peace and righteousness and pleasure in everything but Christ. They're trying to find it. They don't know where they're supposed to look. That's why we have the scriptures that help us to guide us to Christ, to point us to Him, to see our true peace and our true desire. The world doesn't know that that's their desire. They just know that God says, I'll light every man that cometh into the world. I'll give them the desire. They don't know what they're desiring. It's like a child. I'm not going to finish reading. I haven't finished reading yet. It's like a child. A child wants something for their birthday, don't they? They want something. They don't know. They have a desire, but they don't really know what they want. They just know, I got a birthday coming up. And over time, the more you ask them, the more they come up with an idea. Do you know, as a parent, before they ever come up with an idea for what they want, you can give them the desire that they want in their head, and before long they can be telling you what they want, and it could be the thing that you've already gotten them. You've convinced them that that's what they want. You have planned their own desire out. You can do that. Children are vulnerable to being directed by everything that comes along. And we as humans are vulnerable too. And if we're not focused on Christ, and He offers us the desire that we're seeking, we're not focused on Him, we're looking for a desire, the world comes up with everything out there. This is pleasure, this is fun, this is good. You want this. In return, you get a hold of it, you're like, this is what I wanted. I heard a lot of messages on integrity. And I told my children this. Integrity is not something your plastic toys have.
Amen.
They're flawed. If it's made out of plastic and it's a toy, it doesn't have integrity. It's easily broken. It's not in a perfect, unimpaired state. It's already guaranteed to fail. So what do? You try to get your children to mentality. They want something of quality, something valuable, something that is nice, something they can use over a long period of time. There ought to be a desire in a child growing up for their very own Bible.
Amen.
How do they get a desire for their very own Bible? They see it in you that it's precious to you. And they want one of their own.
Amen.
Not just one that sits around the house. They want one of their own. get a child a Bible and they have no desire, they don't wander around, makes you wonder what the rest of the family is doing with their Bibles. Here we go. Back to Haggai chapter 2. The desire of all nations shall come, verse number 8. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former, saith the Lord of hosts. And in this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. In the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ask now the priests concerning the law, saying, If one bear holy flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And the priest answered and said, No. If the priest is carrying the sacrifice in his garment, carrying that sacrifice, and he brushes up against anything that has not been sanctified for the service, the ceremony, if he brushes up against anything, something that has not been considered clean and set apart for that ceremony alone, and he just brushes up against it, the entire sacrifice is considered unholy and unworthy. Take it out, start all over. That's how strict they were. That is how strict they were. We think about that. When we, in our life, we're declared to be the children of God, and we come up against sin and we brush up against sin, our life is no longer holy. What do? We go back, seek forgiveness, get it right, start all over. Not from our salvation, but from that point where we were clean and holy. We get it right and we go on. We don't maintain, well, I can continue in this. God says, no, I don't accept that. You have the taint of sin on it. Amen. Get rid of the sin, clean it up, start all over. God was strict. Here he says this. Verse 13. Then said Haggai, If one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priest answered and said, It shall be unclean. Then answered Haggai and said, So is this people, and so is this nation before me, saith the Lord, and so is every work of their hands, and that which they offer there is unclean. And now I pray you, consider from this day and upward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of the Lord, since those days were when one came to a heap of 20 measures, there were but 10. When one came to the press vat for to draw 50 vessels, out of that press there were but 20. I smote you with blastings and with mildew and with hail and all the labors of your hands, yet ye turn not to me, saith the Lord. Consider now, from this day and upward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, even from the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid, consider. Is the seed yet in the barn? Yea, as yet the vine and the fig tree and the pomegranate and the olive tree hath not brought forth? From this day will I bless them. And again the word of the Lord came unto Haggai the 24th day of the month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them. And the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, will I take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith the Lord, and will make thee as a signet, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord of hosts. And as God gives Haggai the prophecies and the reminders to the people, he says, I want you to look at this building that you're building for me, this temple, this building. He said, how many of you are here remember the last one? How many of you remember the glory of the last one? And how beautiful, how magnificent it was. And now you look at the one we're building and it's like, why are we even building this? It has no comparison to what we had before. You ever done something at your house, ladies? You made a nice meal for company. You made a cake or a dessert, and you had it all beautiful. The meal was ready. You walk out of the room and you come back in, and there's fingerprints across the cake. And your first thought is what? I don't know if I even want to serve this to company now. It's not the same. It doesn't look as good. Am I right? Some of you think, I might be able to fix it if I can. How many of you ever thought that though? You have somebody come in and they mess something up. Men, you're working on a project and you have someone come in and help you. And your thoughts are, I may as well just scrap the project. I don't even know if I'm going to fix this. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at this new building going up, this new building that's going to be called the temple. It's going to be built for God, and hopefully God will himself will meet with his people there, and they're building this building, and he says, what's it look like in comparison to what we used to have? It looks like nothing. He said, you got to remember this as well. You got to remember this as well, that you people are sinners. And you're building this building? Really, what does God want with this building? It was built by the hands of men who are sinners. Because the building itself, if it's built by sinful men, is going to be considered an unclean building, is it not? Do you realize God says this, the glory of this one, the glory of my house will be greater than the glory of the first. What's going to make it greater? Better paint job? What's going to make it greater if we add more gold to it? What's going to make it greater if we add another story to it? What's going to make it greater? What will make this building that is nothing in comparison to that one? This one, it's almost like in an inner city hotel compared to one of the high-rise, beautiful hotels next to one of the casinos. You look at them, it's like, what one has more to offer, and if they offer the same room at the same price? This one over here, I don't even know if I like the neighborhood that it's in. God says this building that is nothing to you in comparison to that one. The glory of this one is going to be greater than that one. And what's going to make it more glorified? What's going to increase the glory of it? First Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Let me remind you as a human being, this is one of the reasons that we do not look at an individual, and criticize or condemn them because of their outward appearance. Though we ought to have an outward appearance that is becoming of what we are, look carefully. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Samuel has come and he's about to anoint the new king. And he has all these boys pass before him. And these boys are perfect human specimens, qualified for the work. Why don't you look at it? 1 Samuel 16, verse number 6. It says that it came to pass when they were come. This is talking to Samuel, that he looked on Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. This guy looks like God's choice for a king. Verse 7. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Now the reality is, man does look on the outward appearance of us. So, in response to that, yes, we ought to have a testimony to people outside in our appearance. We ought to, because men are going to judge us by our appearance. Not that we ought to be judging everyone by their appearance, but people are going to judge us by our appearance. So we need to have an appearance of godliness and righteousness in our life. But the end result that we need to look at is God looks on the heart. And what's in the heart, what's on the inside is really more important than what's on the outside. What's on the inside is more important than what's on the outside. I tell you, I have known some kids from birth all the way up to their 20s who had this thing called Down syndrome. And I've known some of them that had so much more character You know, a lot of other people I knew. Why? Because the parents, first of all, took the stance, I love my child. I'm not going to look at them as not worth having. As the mentality of our doctors and medical science today. One of the first things they do when they do the ultrasound and test is to look to see if your child might have Down syndrome. Why? To give you the option. The option of what? First doctor we sat with. Your child may have a medical condition. We're going to have to run extra tests. We're going to have a special meeting with you. We went in the meeting. We sat down and I said, you say one thing about abortion, you say anything, we're out of here, we'll choose another doctor. Don't ever bring it up in my face. No, I didn't say it like that. I was actually a lot more diplomatic and polite. I did that instead. That's not an option. Just because your child is born with a disability doesn't mean you have the right to take their life. Amen. This child grows up in a home of parents that realize this child may be different than others, but it's my child. I will love them. I will raise them. I will care for them. I met a child one day who was a black belt in karate, 20 years old. I met a man, there's a man that's an evangelist traveling. He would sit at the piano, and if you want to talk about someone that can play the piano beautifully, this man could sit and play like nobody's business. He was about this tall. He walked like this. He had 3 fingers on one hand, 4 on another. He travels and preaches. Met him at a church up in Massachusetts. And when I saw that young man play the piano and I saw him get up and preach, I wept and I said, Lord, forgive me for what I have that I don't use for you. When I saw that, I had a CD that he had made. No, it was a cassette. It was that many years ago. It was a cassette. And I played that in my vehicle over and over. And every time I played that one, it reminded me, just listen, it was just piano playing. It reminded me of a young man who dedicated his life to God regardless what his condition was. Man looks on the outward appearance. God looks on the heart. There's a man right now that went to Bible college with my dad. His name is Trinidad Molina. I don't even know what country that I think my wife has seen something on Facebook once about a year or two ago. She commented on him, I commented back, and I haven't been following him. But he's been a missionary all these years. But Trinidad Molina was a guy who was about that tall, same like the other guy. He had all his hands, but he walked. His hip was completely out of joint, very poor physical condition. But he went to serve God in another country as a missionary and giving his life for the cause of Christ. If you looked at his outward condition, you would say this: what could he do? I was talking to Brother Lisland. Brother Lisland said they have a man that works there with them. He said this man has been through so many trials. He said this man still rides and ropes horses. This man has lost, I believe at this point he's lost 2 hands and a foot. He's got a claw and everything else. And it seems like once he loses something, he gets to where he starts getting back. Brother Lisland said this guy was up on the house the other day. I think he's got a prosthetic leg, a hook on a hand, and another hand is gone, or maybe 1 or 2 fingers. He said he was up there roofing his own house. He said, and the guy said, if God would only just take it all the way at once and let me know how far he was going to take this, I'd be satisfied. But he keeps taking one thing at a time, and I got to learn to deal with that gone. And once I think I got it down, he takes something else. He said, I'm going to keep on. Brother Lisland said, you talk about someone that puts me to shame. He said, this man puts me to shame. Man looks on the outward appearance. God looks on the heart. Psalm 139. Psalm 139. And I tell you what makes the difference, what brings the glory out in this building. The glory in a building that is nothing in comparison to this one that's immaculate and amazing and pristine and beautiful. What brings the glory out? Not what the looks are, but what indwells the building. What takes place within its walls. What actually inhabits it. God said, you had a beautiful building back then, but you were vile people and you wouldn't listen to me. That's what God said. You were vile people, you didn't listen to me. He said, I'm going to make the glory of this one greater. I'm going to be there. Psalm 139, I love these verses. Verse 1, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. You can't hide anything from God. You know, we have a saying in our society, the easiest place to hide something is where? In plain sight. How often have people been walking around looking for their glasses and realize, oh. Say, are you making fun of somebody? No, I'm just giving you history of myself, okay? I've done that. I've been there. I have been there. You get so used to them that you just go, who was it the other day? Somebody went to look for their phone, and they turned the flashlight on their phone to go look for it. Did you do that? Okay. I don't remember who it was. Was it Brother Jones? It was somebody. It was somebody. How we get so caught up in things. God knows what's going on. You can't hide it in the darkness, and you can't hide it in plain sight. He sees it. It's not hidden from you. It's not hidden. I love these phrases, these verses. Verse 14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee, when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God. How great is the sum of them. Can I tell you something? At birth, God, before birth, at conception, God knew what you were going to be physically. He created you to be what you were going to be physically. He created you that way. And one day you grew up to be a human person that had a aspect about you that somebody looked at and said, you know, they're not really as good as that guy over there. They don't have the looks, they don't have the mentality, they don't have, not worth having them, not worth using them. You got to a point where somebody looked at you and said, you know what, we might be able to use you, but not for much. This guy over here, he's got talent, he's got charisma, he's got the ability to speak. I've told people this, and I'll say it again. That's my greatest fear. People have told me all these things about myself. You can do this, and my fear is that I will be this guy over here that people will point to and say, he's got all this talent and ability that will go to my head, and I'll say, you're right, I can do this. That's my greatest fear in life, if you want to know.
Right.
That I will let it get to my head, and I will take it away from the ability that it's just genetics. It's just education and training from pastors and parents and teachers that have got me over to where I might have the look, but if what's on the inside is the same as the children of Israel's temple, then I am no good, I'm worthless, I'm just an empty vessel. And the glory of this one, what brings the glory to the building? God, the Word of God, Jesus
Amen.
Christ, the indwelling of God. It's not the building itself. It's not the building that brings its own glory. What the building is for, the indwelling of God. God created us. He knows what we're going to be already. It's our decision. It's our decision of what we're going to allow within this building, this temple. There was a man named David. God promised David the kingdom. God promised David all kinds of things. David got to a point where he ran in fear from Saul. He ran here, he ran there. David became a fake. David once went to a place and he went to the king, and he went there because he needed to hide from the king of Israel. And he goes there and they said, this guy David, you know, the guy that killed Goliath and the guy that killed all the enemies, he's here. He wants to live here. And the king's like, David? I want to see this guy. They bring David in, and all of a sudden David lives in fear. Oh no, what they might do to me. He forgot about the God that promised him the kingdom. He forgot about the God that promised to take care of him. He forgot about the God that said, I will indwell you, I will use you. And David goes in there, what does the Bible say? The Bible uses the word scrabble. He starts scratching and clawing at the doors, and he starts drooling all over himself, acting like a fool. Read the Bible. King David. And the other king's like, this guy's playing madman. Get him out of my sight. I don't want him in my town. He couldn't even try to protect David, even if God was going to use him, because David was working everything out on his own, constantly. God finally got a hold of his life, and he let God work in it. During that time, I want you to look at two passages. I've seen them before. 1 Samuel 21. I want you to see two passages really quickly. 1 Samuel 21. This is right after this, where David has run, he's fled. He's been actually let out of the city first, and then he goes and escapes for his life after that. He's running from Saul, not trusting God, not letting God use him like he's supposed to be used. 1 Samuel chapter 22. 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1. David therefore departed thence, and escaped to the cave Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. And everyone that was in distress, everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. And he became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. David, running for his life, acting the fool, acting dumb, and he gets surrounded by 400 people who are running from the law, upset with everything, discontent people, a group of people that you really don't want to spend time around. You look at this group of people and you think, you know what? Okay, here's David. I want you to picture David. God said you're going to be the king of Israel. You get a group of people, just like that temple, they look nothing. They're just a bunch of rabble-rousers, debtors, people running from the law, people that are discontent with life and society and everything else. This group of people, David, God says you're going to be king. Here's your first group of people. Huh? He looks over at Israel, where you have a military, you have the might, you have the power, you have the buildings, you have Saul sitting on the throne, and David's like, wait, God said I was going to be the king, and I get this group? I thought God said I was going to be the king of Israel. I thought I was going to be the king of Israel. This is what I get? But that's what I'm supposed to have. I want you to look. One more passage. 2 Samuel 23. 2 Samuel 23. They came to the cave Adullam, where David was running and trying to figure it out on his own. 2 Samuel chapter 23. verse number 8. I'm just going to read a few verses in here. Look at verse 8. These be the names of the mighty men whom David had. The Tachmonite that sat in the seat, chief among the captains, the same was Adano, the Eznite. He lifted up his spear against 800, whom he slew at one time. Oh my goodness. You mean to tell me that you got the might of Israel that you could have? You've got the power in the military, or you have these 400 men? Who would you rather have? Well, one of these guys took out 800 just by himself. Whoa! What is it about this group that doesn't look very good? They're discontent, debtors, rabble-rousers, people running around. What is it about this group of people? I want you to look it down. Just jump down to verse number 13. Look at verse 13. And 3 of the 30 chief went down, came to David in the harvest time into the cave of Adullam. That was the very beginning where they came to David. These 3 of these men that were chief of his mighty men, 3 of them showed up at the very beginning. They were in the group of debtors, discontent, rabble-rousers, running from the law group, the people that were at odds with government and at odds with society. 3 of these men were some of those 400 that came to it. At least 3 of them. It is very particular to make sure these 3 are mentioned. Verse 13, and 3 of the 30 chief went down and came to David in the harvest time unto the cave of Adullam, and the troop of the Philistines pitched in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in an hold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David lodged and said, Oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate. And the 3 mighty men brake through the host of the Philistines, and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it, and brought it to David. These 3 men broke into a fortified position that the Philistines had at one point taken over. Sometime after that, later on, these 3 men break into a fortified position. They break through. They go all the way into the heart of this military might. They get a cup of water out of the well that is in Bethlehem, and they leave town with it. They don't dump it out on the way. They came to get their king a cup of water. Why? Verse 15 to verse 14. David was then in an hold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. Verse 15, and David longed and said, Oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate. I would love to have one cup of water. And these 3 men just took it on themselves. Our king wants water, we're getting it. Wait a minute. These were 3 of your guys that looked like nothing in comparison to the military might of Israel at one time. Man looks on the outward appearance, God looks on the heart. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Let me remind you. I'm going to close. Let me remind you. God sees your heart. He knows what He can do in you, through you, with you, by you. God knows what He can do. It's not depending on what everyone around you thinks about you. It's not depending on that. Everyone else might look at you as, yeah, you aren't going to amount to much. Or, you'll never amount to anything. Some may look at you like, yeah, you might be something. But not in comparison to someone. You ever been compared to another person, brother or sister? You ever had that comparison? I have. I grew up in a family of 10 children. My children are compared to each other all the time by people. People always do it. The reality is they're their own individual. We don't train and raise each of them identically alike. We don't work with them the same exact every time because they're different people. They have different personalities, different character traits that need work than the other ones. They have different things that break their heart and make them cry. You got to work with them. Everyone are different. It doesn't depend on what people think about you. If God created you and you've come to a point in your life where you and everyone around you thinks, hey, you're not worth much, the question is, what is in you? Because looks are all that matters. It's not all that matters. If Jesus Christ is indwelling you, He can use you and make your glory greater than that of somebody who looks like the CEO of a company.
Right.
Because He can use you. Here's the question. Is He in you? Is He in you? Is Jesus Christ, the hope of glory, in you? If He is, then why would we want to look at any others that look appealing and consider to be like them when they're empty and falling apart? Why would we have that desire to be like those that Christ is not in, working through? Heavenly Father, I pray as we close out the service, Lord, as we